Hello, and welcome to All Our Little Messes, a podcast focused on healing through intentional conversations about parenting, relationships, religion, and more. I am your host, Veronica Winrod, and I'm so happy to have you here, listening in on my thoughts today. I hope you enjoy this episode. Hi, and welcome back to All Our Little Messes. This is Season 1, Episode 4. And last week, I was planning on talking to you guys this episode about To Train Up a Child, the book that was written by Mike and Debbie Pearl. And I started putting the episode together, and it honestly just became so heavy of an emotional topic for me. I started trying to record it several times and just started falling into like this depression, this funk, and I just couldn't focus, and I was just getting depressed even thinking about it and reading all of these stories. And I've been going through the book. I've been going through 3 different editions of the book, and just kind of comparing them and seeing how they were different and stuff, and just reading testimonials of people who have used the book, both positive and negative. It was honestly just also depressing to read it. So I decided that I was going to take a break from not parenting podcast episodes, but just take a break from just corporal punishment and episodes centered around that and stuff. So I'm still planning on doing an episode on To Train Up a Child here in the next couple weeks or month. But as of right now, I've just kind of put it aside, and I will definitely be addressing that. So I did make an announcement on my Facebook and my Instagram about this a couple days ago. So if any of you are not following me on Facebook or Instagram, I usually post just any updates that I have about episodes. I'll post them on there a couple days in advance so that you guys would know if there's any changes to the schedule or anything like that. I also post just different little inspirational tidbits and just thoughts I have about life and parenting in general and marriage and whatever kind of hits my brain at the moment. So go ahead and you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram. My handle is All Our Little Messes on both platforms. So, with that being said, let's dive right into what this episode is going to be about. So today I wanted to talk about how to apply discipline in our children's daily lives. I've had a lot of messages and emails, a lot, honestly, and it's been weird. Most of them have been from young mothers, peers, and basically they've all been asking, we all grew up very similarly, and so we have a hard time understanding the differences between discipline and punishment, and then just how to apply those disciplines in our children's daily lives and be proactive about it and to kind of get ahead of the curve. So I thought that would be a really good thing to talk about today, because growing up the way a lot of us did, we didn't have a very good idea of what discipline was and how to apply it in our own lives. And so I feel before you even get into this, a person has to have an understanding of what discipline is, and not just punishment, but discipline. And even Webster's dictionary has several different definitions of what discipline is understood as, and several of those definitions actually are defined as training and correction, not punishment. And that's how I kind of like to think of it. So discipline is, like I said, getting ahead of the curve. You're disciplining, and I hate to use the word training because it's just so, it reminds me of phrases that books like To Train Up a Child or dog training books use, but you really are training and molding a person to have certain behaviors and to like get ahead of the curve before it, a behavior becomes a problem. So, and that's what I think discipline really is. It's training and correction. It's not punishment after a behavior has already occurred. And it's also like consistent redirection and like also it's connection with your child as you're applying this. So, I mean, for instance, you have a 1-year-old who is teething and bites your leg. Now, someone who models their parenting around punishment, like the first reaction they're going to have and the first inclination they have is to spank the child or to bite the baby back, to show them that, biting hurts. We don't bite people, so I'm going to bite you so you know what it feels like, kind of thing. And redirection and training and discipline, how we would apply that in a situation where the baby bites you is instead of biting the baby back, we would try to understand why the baby is biting. And I mean, if the baby isn't angry and just like walks up and bites you, more than likely either the baby's trying to get your attention or she's teething. The baby is teething. And so, and I've actually done this myself and it works. Like I haven't had a biting problem since I started doing this. I'm not trying to put myself out there as a perfect parent. Trust me, we have way too many other problems, in parenting to talk about over here. So, but biting is one that I was successfully able to get ahead of the curve on. So what I did was, I like when the baby bit me. So the first time it happened, he bit me on the arm, and I just like went really loudly, "Ow, no, that hurts, mommy." And then like I kind of stopped, and he got this like really shocked look on his face because I said no, and I was loud, and I was like, "Oh, that hurts," and I was like trying to kind of shock him a little bit, And he started to whimper a little bit, and then I was like, "Okay, so do you want to bite something?" And he needed to bite. He wanted to bite, and so I had like a bunch of like teether toys and like things like that I had from my last baby. And so I went and got the teether toy and I handed it to him, and I told him that we bite this. We don't bite people. We don't bite mama. We bite this. And it took a couple times. I think it took like 3 times that I can remember where he would like go to bite and then he would stop and he would look at me. And then like he would try to test it again, and he would try to bite again, and I'd be like, "No, do we need to bite?" And then I'd, get him the teether. And so he only tried it like 3 times before he would actually come up. He would actually come up to me and ask me, and he would just say, "Bite." And it was funny because it was like one of his first words that he ever said was he would ask me, "Bite." And so that was kind of his thing, where that was how he told me that he wanted to bite. And so I would go get him a teether toy out of the toy box. And so like that to me, it was like a very good example of discipline and, training and showing a child the correct way to do things, because it is a baby's natural inclination when they're teething and when they're young to bite. It's just a stage of development they go through. And so if you punish them for biting you, they're gonna bite other things, or they're going to do it when they're fighting with their siblings. I mean, they're still gonna bite, they're just gonna hide it. So like if they're gonna do it, you need to show them the proper way to do that. So that's just kind of an example to kind of like help understand what discipline and redirection and connection is, because like we were also able to connect because I helped him. I wasn't the big scary person that punished him. I didn't cause him any pain or anything like that. I was his mother who helped him understand. And that's also really important in moments of discipline. It's like you have to be there to help your child understand and to help your child co-regulate through the situations as well. So, like another part of applying discipline in our children's daily lives is having discipline ourselves, like modeling good habits for our children to follow. And like, it's a joke when we say this, but like a big thing I've noticed is the whole attitude of do as I say, not as I do. And so we would punish our kids for the same behaviors that we allow ourselves to have every single day. So, we punish our kids for a fit of anger, and we spank them for it. And then, 10 minutes later, or even during the parenting scenario itself, where you're spanking the kids for having a fit of anger, you're showing anger as you're punishing them for anger. And so, like, a huge part of actually applying discipline is modeling those habits that you want your kids to follow, like the habits you want your kids to have. And so learning emotional regulation, like if you don't want your kids to be angry all the time, then don't be angry yourself. Like learn in a lot of cases we do need to learn those skills ourselves because we were never taught them. So like do the work to learn emotional regulation and how to control your emotions. But that is like a huge part of learning and understanding discipline is modeling that for your kids. And so, and also like modeling empathy and like understanding for other kids. Like we're always wanting our children to, understand that they've hurt someone, and we want them to apologize when they do something wrong. And so like a lot of parents will try to force that apology out of their children. Like, oh, you did something wrong and you have to say you're sorry. And when our kids are young, they don't really understand why. Like they don't understand. They don't even really have the cognitive ability to understand that they did something wrong. And so they don't understand why they need to say they're sorry. They don't even understand what the words mean. And so like we have to model that for them. If we, do commit a wrong against our spouse or against our own children, like we have to model that empathy and that contrition to them. So when we harm them or harm others, like they need to see us apologizing. And like a lot of parents will view apologizing to your children as like weakness. And somehow your children are going to lose respect. But in reality, like if they see you modeling humility and empathy and emotional regulation and all these things, they're actually going to gain respect for you. And they're going to start to model those things that they see you do, because children are sponges. Children are mirrors. They take in and they mirror everything around them. So like so many of those little annoying mannerisms that we see in our children are honestly just annoying mannerisms that we ourselves have. And we just don't like to see them because it reminds us of ourselves. And so if we want our kids to stop yelling, if we want our kids to just stop, breaking out in fits of anger and things like that, like we have to start modeling that ourselves. We have to stop yelling. We have to stop being angry. We need to learn how to have more empathy, and we need to learn emotional regulation. And in turn, they're going to see that, and it's going to become a daily part of their lives, and they're going to start following those examples. And then there's also like discipline in like their lived daily lives, like their structural, their day-to-day structure. And so, like something I found really helps a lot with like maintaining discipline and maintaining like a happy attitude is actually setting a schedule and like involving them in like age appropriate chores. So I have a 4-year-old who has started learning, like most of the time it's absolutely disastrous, but he has been slowly getting better. I started trying to teach him how to fold towels. 100% of the time after he has gone to bed, because I have him fold them at night, 100% of the time after he has gone to bed, I will refold them because it looks terrible. It looks like a bomb has gone off, and I am nitpicky about my towels like nobody else on this planet. So I do refold them, of course, but he is still learning life skills. He is learning how to contribute to the family. He's learning that he is important. He's an important member, and his help is needed. Another thing he started doing, I had him start doing, and he's actually really good at this, is, making his bed and putting away his own laundry. He actually started putting away his own laundry, and what really helped there is we actually established a no-fold system in our house. So we just have buckets, like little cube dresser buckets that they sell on Amazon. And we have a no-fold system. So like we could just grab the laundry basket and just start tossing clothes into baskets. So like jeans, shirts, sweatpants, things like that. Like church shirts, obviously, and like church slacks and things, nicer clothes obviously get hung up or folded. But like we've kind of changed how we do things so that we can include the kids in our day-to-day disciplines, because it really does help cut down. Like I said, we get ahead of the curve. It really stops problems before they even happen. And that's like a huge part of maintaining discipline, is also getting ahead of like any potential power struggles. So, and those will happen because, toddlers are stubborn, toddlers are willful, they're discovering their independence, they're discovering that, oh, I have opinions, oh, I want things, oh, I think I know better. And so like a huge part of discipline is actually getting ahead of any of those power struggles before they even happen. And so, like this is gonna throw some people out there a little off, but like giving your child choices and like day-to-day things is huge when it comes to getting ahead of and avoiding power struggles. Just simple things like you tell your child to go get dressed, and like telling a 4-year-old to go get dressed is, for most 4-year-olds I've ever seen, is like this huge thing. It's like this huge chore. They are overwhelmed, and they walk into their bedroom and they're just, they get distracted, they're overwhelmed, and it just never happens, or it turns into this long drawn out thing where you're yelling and they're crying because you just want them to put clothes on, but there's like so many choices in their closet and they don't know how to choose. And so I have started grabbing 2 shirts, 2 pairs of pants, asking him, which one do you want to wear? And so he gets to choose, and he's still maintaining that discipline of listening to mom when mom tells him to get dressed. So I'm getting ahead of the power struggle, and we're both happy because he's dressed, but he still got to choose what he wore that day, of sorts. In his mind, he chose. So, yeah, in his mind, he chose, and that's what matters, I guess, to him. So just like little things like that, giving the kid little choices. Like, when you're making dinner, ask your child what they want for dinner. But don't just ask them, hey, what do you want for dinner? Because a 4-year-old, a 5-year-old is automatically going to come back with the response, I don't know. Like, they're not going to tell you. And so if you have a picky eater, and they do exist, and you're not a parent that forces their child to eat what's on the table, like every bite kind of thing, and you want to avoid the power struggle of a picky eater, ask them, give them 2 choices of what we could have for a meal. And that way you get ahead of a power struggle, potentially. It's not always going to work, but you could potentially get ahead of any power struggle when it actually comes time to eat the meal, because it'll have been something that they chose. And also having your child get involved in the cooking of that meal, which also goes back to implementing age-appropriate chores. Like, having your child involved in the day-to-day disciplines of family life is also going to help cut down on, those tantrums and those power struggles, because they're going to feel like they're an integral part of the family, and it's like it's something they accomplished and something they're proud of and they want to be involved in. So like involve your kids, and it cuts down on like so many problems if we do that. And also, like, I mean, like if staying ahead of the power struggle doesn't work, and it's not always going to work 100% of the time. I mean, at least in my home, I would say it probably only works 65 to 75% of the time. So there's still a big chunk there where, they put their foot down, or they try to put their foot down. And when that happens, you as a parent have to have a boundary set in place of like a certain standard of behavior in your home. So, if they throw a tantrum about eating a meal that they chose and helped cook, then, and they don't want to eat it, and they've decided they're going to be picky that night, you have to have a boundary set in place. You have to maintain that standard of behavior in your home. So, and in my home, we don't force our kids to eat, for many reasons that we can get into in a later podcast episode. But, one thing we do is, like, you don't have to eat everything that's on your plate. That's fine. But if you don't, that does mean that we're not going to have any snacks later on. And so, because we are after dinner, they usually have a snack before they go to bed, because dinner is like around 5:30, and they go to bed at 7, between 7 and 8. So there's that time gap there where, they could get hungry. And so we always usually have a snack of like a piece of fruit or something like that. And so, when we make dinner, like, I don't want them to get into the habit of wasting food. But at the same time, I'm not going to force feed you. I'm not going to force you to eat your food. If you say you're full, that's fine. You know your body. But you're not allowed to, like, leave your plate of food and then 10 minutes later want a snack. Like, that's not how it works. And so, like, that, our boundary is they have to finish their dinner before we break out the snacks and break out more food. And so we just have like certain boundaries such as that we maintain in order to like maintain discipline in the house. Otherwise, you are going to set yourself up for major power struggles in the future. And that's not something that's easy for any parent to go through. So, that's a big one for us. And then also, I mean, like, when you do have those, those power struggles and those bad days, like, don't be afraid of those bad days, and don't be afraid of failure. And like, something I never really thought of when my kids were really, really young, like, I say really, really young, they're still really, really young, but when they were younger, one thing like that never occurred to me was that, like, I allow myself to have bad days. I allow my husband to have bad days. Like, I allow myself grace to fail. But when my kids have a bad day, when they're just grouchy, and they just are full of the I can'ts and I don't want to's, and they're just grouchy and sad all day long, like, it still just irritates me and infuriates me. And it's like, and it was like, I think a year ago, I kind of stopped to think. I was like, why is it that I will allow myself to be grouchy and cranky and just have a really off day and treat the entire world around me like garbage, but I won't allow my toddler, who has way less emotional regulation than I do, and is, still in diapers in a lot of cases, and has barely lived a fraction of his life. How come I can't allow him the grace to have a bad day? Why? What is it about me that I need to fix so that I can have enough respect and grace to allow my toddler to have a bad day. And that's not saying that, the toddler is going to be allowed to be mean and yell at everybody or anything like that, but you can't allow him to be sad. You can't allow him to just be cranky. It doesn't actually hurt anything. If he's not hurting anybody and he's not yelling and screaming at people, then just allow him to be sad. Being sad is not a bad thing. It's just an emotion. And it's an emotion he'll have to work through. And in order for him to learn how to work through that emotion, he's going to have to experience that emotion. So, don't be afraid of bad days on either one of your parts. Don't be afraid of failing at maintaining the discipline in your home. Because it's going to happen. We're all imperfect. We have no idea what we're doing. We're all starting out and struggling. And so it's going to happen. We're going to fail. We're not going to always get ahead of the power struggles. We're not going to always consistently redirect perfectly the first time. It's not always going to be 100%. And so we have to allow ourselves grace to fail. We're going to have to allow ourselves and our children to have bad days and to recognize that this was a screw up day. We didn't do so good today. That's fine. Let's take notes on how we can be better tomorrow. And that's actually something that I've kind of implemented into how my children apologize or how we acknowledge that we made a mistake is something when I'm talking to my kids about something that they did, a mess up, is when I'm redirecting or correcting something, I try to end it with, let's try better next time, or let's do this the first time next time. So I try to acknowledge that, we made a mistake, but that's okay. We learned from it and we're going to do better next time. We're going to remember this and we're going to do better next time. And that's so important for us to remember too. It was it's okay to fail. That's part of life. That's part of life. And that's how we learn. So it's okay to learn and then do better next time. Because that's how we're going to improve discipline in our house. That's how we get better, is just repetition, just repeating the same thing over and over and over until it just becomes second nature to us. I hope you enjoyed this episode on applying discipline in our children's daily lives. I just wanted to say to keep an eye on my Facebook and Instagram. I will have a couple of announcements over the next couple weeks regarding some guests that I'm very excited about coming on with some pretty exciting topics regarding marriage and motherhood, and we're even going to be throwing in some religious or spiritual topics as well. So I'm very excited about that. So yeah, just keep an eye on my Facebook and Instagram stories for any announcements on that, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in to this episode of All Our Little Messes. Please let us know how much you enjoyed it below and add any questions you have about this episode. Also, don't forget to follow us on Patreon for amazing exclusive perks, including early access to podcast episodes and bonus episodes every month. We've also recently added a support group for all of our paid patrons. You can check us out on Facebook and Instagram for daily updates and insights that mirror podcast topics. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.